I often hear people talk about functional requirements or technical requirements. And so I wanted to sort of look at what is a requirement and what are these things that they call functional requirements. So it's good to start out with this idea of what is a requirement. I think a requirement is a decision that we impose on the implementation. That is, we make some choice of all the needs and problems out there and say, here's what we're going to do when we solve it. Now, this definition is getting me a little bit of trouble as we go forward here because there's lots of decisions we make. So let's look at where requirements kind of live. So, for example, we have this person out here. And what are the basic needs of a person? Well, they're things like food or shelter or beer. Basic human needs. And in the world of software, we call these needs. We're pretty inventive, aren't we? And so we have all these needs. And at some point, among all the needs we have out there, we decide that our solution will do something about one of those needs. Here's the decision. Here's the point where we actually make that decision to impose something on implementation. Over here on the needs, they're all just needs. All just sort of live out there. We haven't decided which one. We make some decision here to solve one of these, and then we know. And then we're going to build something. Build something that actually comes through and starts saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. Now, everything in the white space here, that's our solution space. Technically, everything in the white space is design. But we're just going to call it the solution space for now. Everything outside is the problem space. Solution space, problem space. That's the difference between requirements and design is design's in the solution space. Requirements are down here in the problem space or everywhere outside the solution. Fair enough. So when it comes time to capture a requirement, we have to specify it somehow. And it specifies itself in two parts. The first part, like this statement here, this is what we call the function part. The function part are the actions we take, the information we remember, or the rules that we enforce. They're the things that we do. Not the functionality or the features that we build, but the things that we do. And that, most people agree, yep, we get that. Our solution will provide shelter. But we could do that in lots of different ways, so we have to talk about some other things like sort of how well we're going to do it. And there's categories of how well that we've had over time. And we call these categories of well the how well part or the non-function part, the things that aren't the function, but together create a full specification. So we sort of need both parts. And so a good requirement has that function and non-function. Fair enough. So what is this functional requirement thing? Well, let's go back to our little problem here. And so we have our person and we have the thing that we're building. And so it says, okay, they come up with a statement like, I want blue. We go, oh, okay. Then we'll make a decision, I guess, that imposes our implementation. But is this really a need? Well, it sounds like a need, but maybe it's just a preference or what they like. But we'll write this down and we'll say, okay, our solution will be blue. And then someone comes along and says, really? That sounds like it belongs in the solution space. No, it's something the customer said. No, it's a solution. No, it's something the customer said. And back and forth we go, arguing about whether something directly from the customer is really a requirement or it's a solution that we already have in mind. I'm really not comfortable with either of these things, right? Because while we may call this a functional requirement or a technical requirement, is it really a requirement or is it just a solution here? So maybe we need to look at this a little more carefully because if we look at that statement, I want blue, maybe we're seeing that and saying something like, well, that's probably their solution to some problem they already have. Just like if they said they wanted granite countertops or wheelchair access. That is, they're looking at this and saying, I've got some solution right here that this works really well for me and I want you to do this. Okay, fair enough. You've got a great idea, right? And so if we start looking at this, we'll start saying, okay, is that really just something that's appropriate for a problem that you already have that you say, yeah, that's an appropriate way to solve it? Or maybe this is something about aesthetically pleasing to you, that's why you want it. Or maybe this is something that makes it even testable. But whatever it is, it really, I think, belongs in the solution space here. Maybe at the edge of the solution space over there, just barely inside the solution space, but in the solution space. That means it's really a design choice or a design constraint that we're going to live with your solution over there. Fair enough, right? but I think that's where it belongs. And so it doesn't classically get termed because it's not in the problem space, but in the solution space. So let's take a look at what we've decided here. Well, we said, okay, we've got a person, and a person has these needs, problems, or opportunities, right? And among all those needs, we're going to figure out something that works. But you know what? They've already figured out something as well. And what's interesting here is they almost always think in terms of their own solutions. So when we talk to them, they're going to talk about their own solutions, and that's perfectly fine. But when we think about requirements, we've got to think about requirements about being those needs, problems, and opportunities. That's what true requirements do. However, if you're going to build something, you better be thinking about their solutions because they have an idea already in mind. And if you do something different, you'll surprise them. And generally, surprises in software are not a good thing. So you better take into account their solution ideas, right? But if you ever talk about being innovative, innovation says we're going to solve these problems in a way that's way better than the solution they already have in mind. Because their solution's stuck in their current technology, and you might come up with something way better. So as we go about creating requirements, and we're saying, okay, we've got problem space and solution space, we may take their solutions into our solution space, and if we want to call them functional requirements or technical requirements, that's fine with me. However, be clear, they're really just their solutions brought into our solution space. And that as solutions, they better be solving those true needs, problems, or opportunities. Because if we don't solve for the true needs, if we don't even understand what the needs, problems, or opportunities are, no matter what we call them in here, we have no requirements. That's just the way it is.